So but this chart, it had the standard aspects: red for squares, red for oppositions, blue for triangles, green for sextiles. Had the coloring in it, and it put the constellations. It had the sidereal zodiac in it, put the constellations in it, and put the spaces between the constellations and places where the constellations overlapped. And I used a pastel color for the constellations, just so you could see the shapings a little bit better. And that was a really nice, for me, that was a nice improvement. It just opened it up. Now these chart forms, even with a computer, everything has to be rotated in place. So I did this in Photoshop, so I had to make a different chart form for every 50 years. And just rotate the inner degree grid inside the outer. You know, it's like 1 degree every 72 years. So I rotated it, and I made a whole bunch of different chart forms that would have the color and have the right alignment. And then I would just put the planet, have to put the planets, and I still have to do that manually. But I did work a period of time to get the main the chart, the signs and the constellations and the sidereal zodiacs aligned correctly for every 50 years for 500-600 years. So nowadays, these would all be in computers, and they'd just be rotated into place. It would be there. The idea is, hopefully, by the time I finish this webinar series and my time gets freed up, I'm going to try and find 3 or 4 or 5 people, computer programming people who know astronomy, who know astrology, who want to help me put the RASA program together and make these charts available through this program. That's going to take a bit of time, and it's mostly a question of finding the right people and then just making the commitment and working on it for 4 or 5 months or a year or 2, whatever it takes. But yeah, so this is in process. So ideally, nobody's crazy like me who's going to spend 2 or 3 hours doing this. Even now, to do this with the Photoshop, it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to draw one of these and put every possession in, to draw the aspects in, to put them in, and get everything rotated in place accurately. So you'll see on the chart at the bottom, I call it the RASA08 astrology program, but this started in 2014. It's evolved a little bit. But the epic for this is a chart from 1900. Cardigan was born in 1875. The stars are close within that period. It's closer to 1900. It could have done 1850. It was a toss-up because he right in the middle, but because the end of 75, I chose the 1900 Northern Hemisphere geocentric ecliptic horoscope. So that's it. And I generally put ohms around my chart just as kind of like a little prayer, but that's my own little thing. There's still like mandalas to me. But when you look at this chart, you can see the half of the chart on the inside is shaded. That's the half below the horizon. So then you can see the ascendant, the line going across to the descendant. You see the shaded half. You see what's below the horizon, what's above in the middle right away. And then you see the midheaven cutting right through it on an angle. You can see the IC, the personal motivation. You can see what's rising and setting. So you see the main factors in the houses and in the signs right there. And with the color added in, you get feelings for a chart, and it just becomes something more. So this was the chart. So the signs, we did a whole class last week 2 weeks ago on the colors and the signs, where you can see how the bright signs are for the spring and summer, the dark signs are for the fall and winter. And so the red of Leo and the red of Aries and the yellow of Leo and the blue of Sagittarius are the 3 fire signs. So Aries, the passions of spring, it's the red passions of springtime. The color is connected to the springtime. It's not Libra green in the fall. So if you reverse the seasons and you're just measuring the daylight is increasing, nights are increasing, you come to the right thing. You come to the right point. This Aries is the springtime, the beginning of spring. It's the passions of spring. So just because you cross the southern hemisphere, the mating season will shift to the other hemisphere. It'll shift to springtime. You know, and it's all of the associations to Aries, and the seasons are based on just coming out of the winter, coming out of the greatest darkness, becoming more bright, the warmth returning. and at meeting season there. So a lot of people who are used to using the old systems and you're used to using the Northern Hemisphere books will say it's just a Northern Hemisphere zodiac. It's a symbol. You just use the same symbol in the Southern Hemisphere. They're not connecting it to life and to nature. They're missing a special magical part or a special insightful part of astrology where these things all come together. No. So then from this, I decided if I had the constellations, I wanted to do one with the stars in it. So then I just worked with the outer degree grid. So instead of, I mean, all the in the constellation ones, the stars had to be put in for the degree they're in, put in. So the stars are all in the right degree here, but to fit them on a chart, the constellations are a little scrunched, they're a little thinner than they normally would be, so they would fit around the wheel properly. But they're in the right degrees that they're in. So when you see a planet and you go out, it's where it is. It's what's there. So following through on that, it takes a certain amount of audacity or daring or stupidity or something to decide you want to do something with the stars. So I first made a first wheel with, there's 9 0 magnitude stars. They're brighter than the first magnitude. They're just the 9 brightest stars in the sky. So I put them on the chart. You got them put around in the chart. And most of them, Gemini, Cancer, that's the galaxy Sagittarius. But there's not a lot of them. You know, but in this chart, when you're seeing it, you look around the chart, you can see Carl Jung's midheaven is near this star. That's Alpha Centauri. And you can see that his Mercury is conjunct two first magnitude stars here in Cancer. And that would be Castor and Pollux of the twins. I believe that's what they would be. And then nothing else is touching the first magnitude star. So these had to be drawn in and made on the form, looked up to get for the specific date, and every time a chart was done for that, it had to be made for it and put in its correct positions. So by putting them on the sidereal wheel on the outside, they were fixed in the positions, and then once they were there, the wheel could be rotated 1 degree every 72 years to keep the stars in the right alignment. Then there was a factor where you can put beams out and you can see where each planet is. You can see the beams going out for each of the planet's positions. And this would help to assign, there's the Mercury touching the 2 stars. See the midheaven, it's not exactly touching the stars, so it's allowing a 1 degree orb on either side. So you wouldn't be counting, that would only be the Mercury having the 2 stars. But it's in his mind that he became most noticeable and most unique. Then there's 11 first magnitude stars. Each magnitude is 6 times brighter than the one before it. Like so there's a spectrum, but really it's each one is a 1/6 bigger, so or lesser. So the 0 is the biggest, the brightest, and the 1/6 less bright. So the first magnitude, 1/6 less bright. Second, 1/6 less. So they're significantly lesser. So there's only 11 first magnitude stars in the sky. 9 really bright ones and 11 other. These are all we consider the brighter stars. So they're put around here. There's 3 in Pisces, what we would see in Pisces. And there's none in Aquarius, over Aries and Taurus. There's 1 there in Gemini, 1 in Cancer, 1 in Leo, that's Regulus. There's Spica. And in Libra, then there's the different ones as you go on, that's Antares. You can see where they're around. So this was the second wheel of stars added in. And then when you look at the chart, so I see this as an app or a program where you can put the chart in, you can put these other things in, you can work with the chart and you can see the stars, and then you can look them up and see where they are and see the influence. So stars are not, this is a whole nother level. It's not so valid in your natal interpretation because all the stars together are just 1/10 of the light that reaches the planet. But it is light from other stars and other masters. If you consider stars like masters, other light from other stars or masters. So someone that gets a special inspiration above and beyond anything else might have connections to those stars or special destinies. So it's not changing the main interpretation, but it's adding another little factor that's there. And sometimes if someone's sensitive or aware enough, they tune into it and it can make a huge difference. So this was following through with first magnitude stars. There's not really, he doesn't really have anything touching any of the first magnitude stars. There are books and tables of which stars, and there's numbers for the stars and names and information with the stars, but that has to be done. That's verbal, that's text and tables. But here there's 56 second magnitude stars. So suddenly there's a lot more stars second magnitude, not the brightest, but close, distinctly seeable. And this puts the 56 stars around. And you see the groupings in Gemini and the groupings in Sag. So that's the Milky Way, where it would be. So there's always going to be more stars there. Same chart. The outer wheel is being added more information on it. So when you're thinking just a natal chart, well, this is like profound. It's too much. This is crazy. When you start adding progressions and you realize that a progressed planet. So I can't get this right now. Okay. When you take a progressed sun, could take 2 years touching a star. But a progressed Saturn or one of the other planets or Mars could spend 40 years touching a specific star. Suddenly, these things can have much greater relevance on another level. This is all prep work for stars, but this is, I don't know. I've been driven, I see it and I have to do it, and I've been driven by this. Probably cost me a couple of marriages because I'm so lost in this. But in any case, here, this put the beams out where you can see what planets and what things are factoring. So there's Neptune touching one star, Uranus touching another. That's it. And Mars is touching one star. So I'm not sure what those are at the moment. You have to look them up with tables to look them up, but you still are getting the sense of building up all these different stars in the sky around the wheel. This is how I put this together. Then I didn't even count the third magnitude stars. I just put them in. There's a lot of them, and they're put in around the wheel. But I found it useful to separate the different sizes, because one of the things, if you have planets conjunct first magnitude stars, it tends to make you a first magnitude person when it's a second magnitude person. So this is some of the logic. We're going to do a whole class on stars. So I'm just trying to make the connection between the chart forms and information there and what you can get. And even though all this extra information, you still have your basics. You can still fall back to a planet in the sign and a planet in the house. Rising, setting, above, below. You still have that right there without having to get a second chart or do something else to find it. It still has all that information. The main stuff is there. You can still, but it does go out to these finer tuned things. So we get to the fourth magnitude stars. Again, a lot more stars. All these stars had to be calculated for that. This is for 1900, and they had to be put in the position. And so this was a madman's work. So this just shows, again, the beams would come out. You see what stars would be there. In a program, we might be able to get it so that you click on it, you can see what the stars were, and you get the interpretations of it. It would make it easier. Then the fifth magnitude stars is some of them, not all of them. It's more selective ones, more well known of the fifth magnitude stars were put on it. Just going to keep going along here.